Welcome to the Football Historian Podcast.
By all means, enjoy it.
He will go right to the very top.
Dos, tres, cuatro times.
Here we go, Germans.
I will turn these results round.
All right, that's good manners.
There's animosity, but there's no fight.
If you can't beat them, join them.
How do you make me feel sick if I look at you?
No, I want to fight here. Don't drink, don't sleep with women, don't drive fast cars.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit too!
Hello, welcome to the Football Historian Podcast, episode 10. We got there, and this is just the start. Thanks so much for the support. This is not the end, this is the beginning. As you know, we now start with correspondence, where I get a question from one of you to start the episode off, try and get you more involved in the show. This one comes from Simon, who said, "What is the craziest rule that's ever been introduced in football?" Thank you very much for the question. I appreciate it. I've got a story that I have done before. I've done an article. I've done a TikTok on it. Feels like a good place to share it again. Barbados play Grenada, 1994 Shell Cup. Barbados have to win by 2 goals in order to progress to the next round of the competition. They're at home. They're the favourites. They go 2 goals up. But Grenada pull 1 goal back. There's only a few minutes remaining. Barbados realise that their chances of success are slipping through their hands. If they want to progress, they need to score another goal. But they realise, because of the new rule that came in for this competition, no game can end as a draw. It goes to extra time. And in extra time, golden goals are in place. Not only that, but the golden goal counted double. So therefore, Barbados realise their only chance of getting a double goal lead again is if they go through to extra time. So the last few seconds of the game, they're passing it round the back, score a deliberate own goal. Goes to extra time. Barbados then pile all the pressure on Grenada. Shots left, right, centre. The goal comes inevitably. They score to make it 3-2. Because of this stupid rule, it becomes 4-2. They're then through to the next round of the competition. Unsurprisingly, this rule didn't carry on and it's never been used since. But I want to know, you at home, is there any rules that have been introduced that you would like to see scrapped? Is there anything that's been scrapped that you'd like to see come back? And if we say that the double goal rule didn't work, because this is a prime example of it, if draws were scrapped in football, do you think it would make a more entertaining game? I personally think we're pretty much fine as we are. Maybe think of VAR, but please let me know what you think. You know, the classic like, subscribe, comment, get it going, get the chat going. I want to get you more involved. Episode 10 is with George Sephton. For anyone who doesn't know, he is the voice of Anfield. He is the stadium announcer. He reads out the teams. He tells you how much time is added on. He's going to be here in a second. You'll watch the episodes. He's a really kind man. He helped me so much with my book for Tommy Lawrence. And he's got a lifetime of memory. He's 53 years at Anfield he's been working. And I really hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you again for your support. Please get your comments in. And we'll see you for episode 11. Enjoy the ep. Hello everyone and welcome to the Football Historian Podcast. Today I am joined by the voice of Anfield himself, Mr. George Sephton. Thank you very much for making the trip to the garage.
My pleasure. It's the corner of Liverpool I haven't been to for a long time. So I'm just glad to be here in peace and quiet.
Yeah, well, welcome back on behalf of everyone from this area. Everyone who doesn't know, 53 years, I think it is now.
Yeah, 53 season, yes.
Yeah, 12 managers if we include Slot, who would be next season.
I've been doing some counting. It depends on who, if you count Ronnie Moran or Phil Thompson. I think this is 14.
Right, okay, yeah. We put them in. Put the caretakers in 14. Well, Shankly to Slot. Yeah. You've seen some of the biggest moments in Liverpool's history comfortably. Mm-hmm. First question I want to ask before we go into how it all started is, what is the one moment that you've had to remind yourself that you're a stadium announcer and not a fan inside your little box at Anfield?
Continually. You'd be amazed how often I stop and think, what am I doing here? I'm going to write a book on the imposter syndrome one of these days, because more and more as time goes on, I'm talking to people, and one of my pet sayings lately is, people say to me, "Do you enjoy the job?" And I say, "Yep, it's quite stressful sometimes. It's more stressful than you'd think. But you name me another job where you're on your way back to the car park after the game and you bump into James Bond." I'm waiting, I'm still waiting. And that's the way it is. It's the people you meet.
Yeah. It's a very special role, and I'll start then. So Nottingham Forest, August 1971.
That's
Two
right.
people make the debut: Kevin Keegan and George Sephton.
That's right.
How did that happen? How did you get that job?
I've been going to Anfield since January 1960. I started going just after Shankly came, and in the very early 70s, 70, 71, my wife used to cut the match with me, but she could only go midweek because she had a hairdressing business, worked every Saturday. One night in spring 71, the guy who was on the PA, or was the tannoy then, I'm still trying not to use that word, but it was an old-fashioned tannoy system. He made a bloomer, and I made some sarcastic remark to my wife. And she just looked at me and said, "It's all right for you standing down here. Bet you couldn't do any better." And I looked at her. I thought, "You were going to pay for that." And she did. I went home and I wrote the classic letter to Peter Robinson in Dear Sir, gives a job. I can do that. And much longer than that. It was about A4-sided paper, and never thought any more about it. Then I got a letter from him, "Please come and see me." And I went to see him. I think he just wanted to make sure I didn't have two heads and whatever. And he decided to give me a trial starting in the August. And something else I've been telling people, like, as far as I'm aware, the trial is still going on because nobody's ever come to me and said, "The job's yours, son." And the rest, as they say, is history. And as you said, that date, the 14th of August, this young wet behind the ears lad from Doncaster came running out, and that was Kevin Keegan. I've seen him recently. It's quite funny. I didn't see him for years. Then I bumped into him when he suddenly reappeared for whatever reason, and I said to him, "You don't remember that I started the same day as you?" And he just sort of looked at me, and then he thought, he came back and said, "Hang on, and you're still there?" I said, "Yes, Kevin, but you did better out of it than I did." But again, I've seen him very recently, and he's making a big thing of it now. That he's a lovely bloke, really one of the original nice guys.
Yeah, it was like a Shankly evening or something me and my dad went to, and he was on the stage then, and you hear like an evening with, sometimes you expect they'll do 5 minutes or whatever, but he had like a whole presentation. He proper hosted it to, like, you can see then, like, he's obviously got a big attachment with lots of other clubs, but even then his love for Liverpool was clear. Yeah, so it's a good person to share it with. It could have been a lot worse on the debut.
Oh yeah, I'll say.
Did the man before you then? So why did he lose his role? I don't want to speak bad about him, whatever. But what did he do wrong, and why did you take his job?
I only found out many years later that Alan Jackson of Radio Merseyside was in the hot seat, but in October, I think it was 1970, he was offered a job on Manx Radio, and he was desperate to get into radio, and he said to the club, "Can I take a sabbatical for 6 months? I've got to do this job because obviously I can't get from the Isle of Man here at weekends to do it, to do the PA here. But I've just got to do this to get a foothold in broadcasting." He said, "I'll leave somebody in charge who's very competent, and I'll be back at the start of next season." I said, "Okay." Because the guy left in charge wasn't. I felt a bit guilty for about 30 seconds. But it wasn't Alan Jackson I took over from. It was his stand-in. I'd never heard the name Alan Jackson. Of course, the start of the season when I started, who turns up but Alan Jackson with a box of vinyl singles, not knowing that he'd been given the boot. And that was really embarrassing. This is typical LFC, man. You know? I mean, I've been sacked twice, and nobody's bothered telling me, which is why I'm sitting here talking to you. And he was amazed when he turned up and found me in his chair. And I felt a bit silly, but I thought, well, as far as I'm aware, this is my job and I'm not moving. And he went away, and he came back. He started helping out the hospital broadcast, and saw quite a lot of him over the years. But I'm sure that somewhere in his house he's got a voodoo doll of me with lots and lots of pins sticking in it. I'd do the same.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you as well, saying because you took over someone, have you ever been close to not having the job again? So you've been sacked twice.
Yeah, well,
how did that happen?
The first time, where are we? The first day of season 2000-2001, I turned up to Anfield, and about 2 minutes after I turned up, Phil Easton from Radio City turned up, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, "Don't mind me asking, what are you doing here?" And he said, "I was about to ask you the same question." And apparently a deal had been done so that one of Radio City's people was going to come in and do my job. It was all signed, sealed, delivered, but nobody had thought to tell me. And somebody said, apparently they had a meeting a couple of days before the start of the season, and somebody said, "What did poor old George say when he was told he wasn't working here anymore?" And the guy who was supposed to pass the bad news on started shuffling his feet and coughing. I said, "Well, actually," and somebody said, "You haven't told him, have you?" He said, "Well, no, I just haven't." He bottled it, basically. And somebody else said, "Well, when George turns up and Phil's there, he'll take umbrage and turn the tail and go home." And of course, I didn't. I was thinking the same thing. This is my job. If somebody's told me it wasn't my job anymore, I'll be off. But nobody had, and there were so many complaints. Obviously he brought some different music to what I had, and everything was a lot louder and whatever. And they had so many complaints, they had to backtrack. And from that day onwards, Phil and I worked as a team. People used to think I hated Phil. I didn't. I thought the world of him. Yeah, we did functions together, dinners, broadcast, all the rest of it. And so it went on until he passed away suddenly a few years later, and Peter McDowell took over from him, and again went the same way. Peter and I working as a team. Peter's down on pitch side, I'm up in the naughty corner on the end of the Kenny Dalglish stand. But then during lockdown, somebody turned up one day with a laptop full of music and said, "This is the pre-match playlist." I said, "Hang on, no, this USB stick here is the pre-match playlist." And apparently then they decided to move me on, but again they had to backtrack for the same reason, and they'll try it again. But I've got to the stage now. They can't really do anything to me. 53 years is pretty good going.
Yeah.
And when Jurgen extended his contract, it was a couple of years ago, he extended to 2026, didn't he? At that point, I remember saying to my wife, "It's a good milestone for me to aim at, because I'll be 80 in 2026. And it'd be nice to last us until Jurgen's finished." Of course, then he backtracks, does a U-turn, and here we are, he's gone, and I'm feeling the cold wind a bit, because I know there are people down in Chapel Street, average age about 23, think that somebody in my position should just be taken away quietly and put down humanely. Well, on the other side, I know obviously Jurgen likes me because he's gone on national TV and said so. Kenny Dalglish likes me because he went on LFC TV and said so. And for whatever reason I don't understand, John Henry's wife thinks we're a good bloke as well. So they're good people to have on your side, but now one of them's gone. So if ever Kenny or Linda Pizzuti fall ill, I'll be the most worried in the club, believe me.
Yeah, well, I say you've been there such a long time, and I saw Gary Neville recently took credit for the song change at Old Trafford when they played the Stone Roses now.
Oh, yes.
So I'm not going to say you have to take credit for anything, but is there a change that you've implemented that's now part of everyday match that because I think Thunderstrike gets played before every game. Was that your idea? And obviously you never walk alone and stuff like that.
Thunderstruck I just came on by accident. I played it. I thought that's perfect build-up music, that. But then, towards the end of this season, just finished, I was told just to play something different. Again, I don't know where the orders come from, but for the sake of peace and quiet, I just started playing something else. But during the last few weeks, and people have been coming up to me, and a few of them have said, "Why have we stopped playing Thunderstruck?" And the answer, well, because I was told to. I wish somebody would make their mind up. I wish that the club would take a poll. I know we had a run-in a couple of years ago. People started going on at me about Fading You Never Walk Alone. And I had a spell, probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was getting so many messages, emails, tweets, Facebook messages, and you split them down the middle. Half said, fade it. The other half said, whatever you do, don't fade it. And I think I put a post on myself, you lot just make your mind up. I don't care. I really don't care. I'll do what I'm told. And the consensus was that I should fade it. But then, again, whoever's handing the orders out upstairs messaged me to not fade it at all. So the last few games of this last season, I've not faded You Never Walk Alone. And I think I've had one complaint. But there's always one in the crowd who'll email me, and why are you playing that rubbish? And when you dig deep, there's a particular tune that this guy doesn't like. It doesn't mean everybody else doesn't like it. He just thinks, I don't like it, so it must be bad. I am Lord High Almighty of music criticism. I've had that for years and years. But I'm still going strong.
Yeah, well, you're never going to please everyone. I think it is.
Oh no. Well, it's because the age range at Anfield is tremendous if you think about it. Yeah, we've got kids of 3 and 4 going, and people in their 90s. You're never going to please everybody.
No, never. Well, I want to ask as well about your personal rivals. I've done rivals in inverted commas, but you can't see that. But it is. In that Peter Gillam from Brentford.
Yes.
So 55 years he's been there. I think that's 2 years longer than yourself.
Well, it's interesting that, because I was told it was 1 year longer than me. And then there was an article about him in one of the papers not long ago, and it's suddenly gone to 2 years, which is odd. I mean, again, I've met Peter. Lovely fellow. We got on like a house on fire. But I'd love to know the actual truth. I don't want to get onto him and say, look, what's happening. But his position at Brentford is completely different to mine. He's full-time staff. They call him Mr. Brentford. He works during the week, players liaison, all the rest of it. And when Brentford came up to the Premiership, if you look at the pictures of the playoff win at Wembley, he's in the picture, with alongside all the players, the management staff, whatever it is. So good luck to him. And but it'd be nice, one day to outlast him or whatever else happens.
I was going to say, surely that marker there of 1 or 2 years before you just want to beat him.
Yeah, I have this vision of me being, in a bath chair being pushed into Anfield, one day. Today's best tune, and But I hope it doesn't come to that. And maybe he'll retire, but maybe he won't. But whatever else happens, he hasn't been in the Premier League all that time. I have never been relegated.
There we are. That's your win.
Yeah.
Well, he was in the last New Year's Honours List given a British
Yes.
Empire medal.
Yes.
Do you want one of them?
I was quite upset about that. I'm not, good luck, he deserves it, but I think it'd be nice just to get a bit of recognition off somebody somewhere. I mean, I'm still waiting for my email from the club saying, well done for being here 50 years. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
But I'm used to it now. I say every time somebody upsets me, I say to my wife, "That's another chapter for book 2." You know, yeah.
Well, and I always wanted to ask about music as well. As you say, you pick the list, you pick who's on. UX is obviously something that you seem to try and push and try and help people.
Yeah.
So, is there anyone that you played before anyone else who's gone on to be big and you take credit for? Or
absolutely. Well, if you ignore Atomic Kitten, who I'm I was playing stuff of theirs when before anybody else did. There was a long story attached to that. But basically, I happened to ring the woman at the record company. I was after a CD by somebody else, and she said, "Oh, while you're on, I've got this new band I'd like you to listen to," and that was Atomic Kitten. Of course, they were Scousers. They were put together by Andy McCluskey of OMD. He doesn't. I don't think he brags about that nowadays, but he did. And going back, I was the first person to play the Coddle. When great numbers and the Zootons come to that, because they had a record company in Rose Lane in Aigburth in those days. Obviously, they moved onwards and upwards. But as I say, I learned a valuable lesson at school about encouraging young musicians. And I'm sure you've heard the story before. I keep telling people, and there's always somebody who hasn't. My geography teacher, Mr. Edwards, came back from lunch one day early, and the classroom was empty, apart from one young lad sat in the corner practicing on an acoustic guitar. And Mr. Edwards came out with the wonderful phrase, which nobody ever let him forget: "McCartney, put that thing away, it'll never get you anywhere." And I thought, well, that's true. And I have spells. I know when in the 80s, when people had cassette players in their bedrooms, hordes of them, I used to get some real rubbish sent to me, stuff I really couldn't put my name to. And for some reason, as things have gone on, people have got proper recording studios in their back bedroom, again, like where we are now in the garage. The quality of the stuff I've been getting has been amazing. In fact, it's heartbreaking because there's so much good music knocking around, and I haven't got the airtime to play. Even the radio stations struggle. And I always used to say there was only me and John Peel that sort of play stuff like that. I remember saying to his Mrs. Sheila once after he died, I was sat there one night with me, come home from work, and there was a pile of mail, lots of CDs, and I was doing what John used to do. You play 30 seconds, and thought, possibly play 30 seconds to the next one. Oh no, that's no good. Then you find one that was out of this world, and you just go through that and try to do your best to play what you could. Give
people a chance. That's it.
Yeah.
So Jürgen plays to kids. You do the same with the music. Yeah. Right. Well, we're going to do a quick break, and I'm going to come back and talk a bit more about your life as a stadium announcer. Okay. So we'll see you in a sec.
Hi, I'm Warren, the producer for the Football Historian podcast, and we're here today to talk to you about the Patreon subscription.
Yes, so for just £1 a month for the first 100 people, there's a lot of benefits that you get, and I think £1 is a terrific deal.
Pittance, yes,
£1 only, and you get early access, which means at least 24 hours before everyone else gets the episode, you get to watch it. There's also an extra section, we call it the Football Historian Podcast Extra Time, and we ask all the questions to the guests that no one else gets to see unless you're a patron. And on top of that, you're the ones who get to ask the questions. You send them in, we tell you which guest is going to be coming and sitting in this chair. You ask them, we record it, you get to watch it. No one else does. On top of that, we do a monthly special. We did one last night. It was a quiz. You were there.
Yeah, bedlam and great content.
Yeah, so hopefully you can watch that. As I said, we've got a round on Linvoy Primus or Lionel Messi. We've done mastermind stuff, all that. That's going to happen every month. The bigger this grows, we're going to do it even more regularly. Hopefully it'll be once a week. But we need your support. So to do that, £1 a month for the first 100 people. Your early support will be rewarded. From then on, it's £3 a month if you want to support us. If you want to pay £5 a month, you get all that we've just mentioned, but you get a poster. Warren will sign it, I'll sign it, all the lads. We'll get a few of the guests to do it as well. It will send that out to you, and then for £10 a month you get all that, the poster, all the early access, and you get a free copy of any of my books. So I've done one on Billy Liddell, Crossing the Park, Tommy Lawrence. They're all worth at least £20. For just £10 you get a copy of the book, all the stuff we've already mentioned. We'd really appreciate your support. We cannot do this without you.
This really is a passion project, and anything people can put into it goes straight back into it. We don't take a wage. We're doing this for free. We're doing this because we enjoy what we do.
That's it. It all makes the content better. And I say from just £1 a month, you can make our dreams come true. Thanks for the support. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Welcome back. Section 2, the Football Historian Podcast. Still joined by George Sephton. I want to talk about the highs and lows of your job and being a Liverpool fan. I want to start with the highs, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speak for you, but Steph's Pack Lunch on Channel 4, it cuts to a video of Kenny Dalglish and Jurgen Klopp. I've just watched it again then, just before you came in. It's pretty safe to say you didn't know it was going to happen.
I hadn't
How
a
was
clue.
that? How was that?
That was quite a day. I mean, it was strange because, it's filmed in Leeds. I was told they were sending a car for me. Oh, this is nice. But I was just having a shower first thing in the morning. I got a text saying, your taxi is on its way. And I'm looking at my watch. Anyway, it turns out to be a minicab from Keighley. Anyway, he came. And I had to ask my wife to make me some breakfast. And she said, "What's up with you?" I said, "I'm shaking like a leaf." She said, "You've been in worse situations than this." And I said, "I've never done live national TV. It's a whole new thing." Driver picks me up, and we got to Leeds, and I would say I'd never caught his name, but it might have been Lewis Hamilton, because it had to be scraped off the windscreen when we got there. But it's a strange setup, Steph's Packed Lunch. The green room is actually the coffee lounge in the hotel next door. The makeup room is about 3 foot square, which is crazy. But then all of a sudden you get wheeled in when it's your turn to go on, and you find yourself talking to people you normally only see on the TV. It's very surreal. It really is. And they're asking me usual rubbish and the standard questions. Bring up a picture of the book, and I mentioned Kenny, and Steph said, let's see what Kenny's got to say. And you said yourself, you said that he was obviously filmed on somebody's mobile, and it was quite obvious to me he was having his dinner when it happened, and he'd been dragged out against his better judgment. And he finished and said some nice things, and I said, "Well, that's nice," thinking that was it. And then all of a sudden behind me there's this gruff voice, "Hello, George," and that was Jurgen. And my wife said to me later, "I don't know how you held yourself together." I said, "Well, neither do I. I was so shocked. Here's this great man telling the world it's a fantastic book and I'm a Liverpool legend." And again, I said to Chris Gamaro when that finished, I'd been talking earlier about some of the big games, and every time you think life doesn't get any better than this, all of a sudden it does. And that was proving my point. That was another occasion I would have, quite happily just taken that. And
yeah, well, I've got a quote. It wasn't from that, but I think it's what Kenny has said another time about you. So George is part of the history and tradition of this club, and it would be more relevant if he left than if I left.
That's
right. A two-time manager, a player who many regard as the greatest player to ever play for us.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
Just unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, that quote from Kenny was on LFC TV on my 65th birthday. I was out with my wife and my family having a meal, and all of a sudden my phone started pinging away, and I'm trying to be polite and not look at it, but they're all saying the same thing. Wasn't it great what Kenny said? And of course, I didn't know what he'd said at that point. When we got home, I bring up LSC TV, and I saw him doing that, and I said to my wife, "Come and look at this. It's just unbelievable." Obviously, Kenny is an idol, and somebody of his level saying things like that about me, it's just unbelievable.
well, I think many Liverpool fans would swap places for their name in that quote. It would be pretty amazing. So, yeah, as you say, you peaked there. Well, as you said, highs and lows. So I want to talk about probably what I would expect to be one of the lowest moments of yours as a Liverpool fan, and that it comes to Hillsborough 1989, where obviously you can tell the story, but I've got here that you had the tickets and gave it to your son.
That's right. I probably still do. I hate semi-finals. They're just far too nervous for me. And my attitude is, you go to a semi-final, if you win, great, you've got the final to go to. If you don't, you come home with your tail between your legs, and it's a nearly occasion again. And it's like having your face pressed up against a sweet shop window. You've missed out on the good stuff. So when it came to Hillsborough against Forest, I had a ticket, but I wasn't keen. But my son, he'd be 15 at the time, Robert, and he wanted to go. And cut the long story short, I sorted out another couple of tickets for his mate and his mate's dad. His mate's dad drove them there, and my wife, I think, great, he's gone, he's got the match. He's being driven by a responsible adult. He's safe as houses. We can just sit here and enjoy the day. And of course, it didn't happen like that. 6 minutes past 3, all hell breaks loose, and then we heard what had happened. And the next, I think it was an hour and 3/4 before Robert rang. He was in a phone box somewhere outside Sheffield. He rang, said we're out, we're in one piece. And then I had to go up to Ormskirk, because his mate who he's with, his mum and dad had a stall on Ormskirk Market. So I went flying up there, and I got to the stall to tell them that their lad was safe, just before somebody told them there'd been a disaster at Sheffield and all these people had been killed. So that worked out very well. But I know one of the police who came to interview Robert for I think it was for the inquest, looked him in the eye and said, "You're the luckiest boy alive," because he was on that little gate that would, in the fence at the front of Leppings Lane, and the crush from behind pushed him through that and out onto the pitch. But what people don't realise, he and his mate got out there, and the police pushed them back in and slammed the gate on them. And the more you think about that, the more horrendous it sounds. But obviously we found out over the years that South Yorkshire police basically did not know what they were doing, or when they did know what they were doing, they tried to pass the buck to anybody in sight who happened to be a Scouser.
Yeah, well, that's it. As you say, it's not just how traumatic the event that day were, it's how it unfolded afterwards.
Yeah.
So, we had Ian Byrne on recently, and he's got like the Real Truth Legacy project, the Hillsborough law now that they're trying to bring in and stuff like that. So how have you been involved anyway, or what was your experience maybe since Hillsborough and when watching it from afar?
I've said a few times to Margaret Aspinall, and before her Trevor Hicks, that anything I can do for them, I do. Because Margaret will come up to me, "Oh, thanks for doing this, thanks for doing that," and I say, "Listen, but for the grace of God, it could be you down here, and I could be chairman of the Hillsborough Families Support Group. It's just pure good luck, and I appreciate that somebody was looking after our lot that day and not yours. So anything I can possibly do for them, I do." And it's just watching what they've had to go through, and I can't find a word for it. I'm going to say it's unbelievable, but given what's happened to the people in Grenfell Tower, the post office employees, all the way down, the blood. What's the latest? The blood scandal. The people like us are treated like cattle, and that's the way it's always been. And it's you just hope it'll improve one day. I see no sign at the moment, to be honest.
Well, I want to ask about tragedy chanting. 'Cause obviously, you're
Oh,
a
yes.
man with a microphone in front of your face.
Yes.
How hard is it when you hear other ones doing it, knock around the
It's,
town?
it's infuriating, and it's double infuriating because there was one match last season. We were playing Chelsea, and I could hear our lot chanting the usual stuff about Chelsea, and at the other end you could hear Chelsea chanting their stuff about Hillsborough. And one of the senior policemen brought a piece of paper in for me to read out. And it's as soon as there was a break in play, and there was one just then, so I didn't have a chance to read through this piece of paper. I thought I was going to be reading something out about the Hillsborough chants. I was actually telling off the cop for what they were singing about Chelsea. I was blazing, absolutely steaming. You are joking. Yeah. No, this is the real. What they're saying is now classified as a hate crime. I just had nowhere to put myself. All you can do is bite your lip and get on with it. But again, there'll be a fair amount about that in the next book. But when there's nobody telling me to shut up and do what I'm told. But I mean, we get it. We should be used to it. We'll never get used to it. I mean, the fact that there are people wandering about this country who are prepared to sing things like that. It beggars belief.
Yeah, I say it happens so often as well. It's a hit. It's not something that we don't hear. And I want to ask again: has there ever been a time when you have made an announcement that wasn't maybe you weren't given permission to do so? Have you ever said something or
once or twice? Not so much announcements. I think of things I've done. I'm thinking in particular of. Of course, the classic Arrivederci Roma. In, what was it, 2001, we were playing Roma in it was the Champions League, but somebody suggested this would be a nice tune to play at the end, and then we beat them, and I put the thing on. And if you ever listen to the song, basically it's very complimentary to Rome. It says, we look forward to seeing your beautiful city once again. Because I put it on, the entire cops start laughing. And then I get downstairs and I went in the press room for a cup of tea. One of the stewards got me away. He said, George, leg it. Just don't hang around, get out. Next morning, I'm all over a couple of the nationals. I was told that the ground safety officer was furious. The match commander was furious. Gerard Houllier was embarrassed. And then my eldest he'd been living in Crawley for years. Something came up on one of his monitor screens saying, headline, Italian Fury. So then, I mean, I still don't go to Italy for my holidays. I don't think it's worth the risk. The worst tales of mafia contracts, I don't think it was quite that bad. But I know for a fact, Fabio Capello, who was in charge of Roma at the time, was not a happy man. If I could have run into him, I would have been in trouble. But I apologised, and I explained what I've just said to you. No malice in it, but it was taken all the wrong way. And of course, 3 days later, we're down in Cardiff, Millennium Stadium, for the League Cup final against Birmingham. And after I'd done what I had to do on the pitch, I had to walk 3/4 of the way around the stadium to get to where my seat was. All the way around, all the Scousers would go around the other way. And the number of them who were singing Arrivederci Roma, you wouldn't believe. And I just wanted to crawl under a big stone and stay there for a while.
So you won't be doing that again?
No. But again, sometimes you do things and people don't twig, and people read things into certain tracks of music. I mean, the classic was, it must have been 2004, where Gerard Houllier was starting to get stick off the crowd. I came in from work one night, picked up my bag and went straight to Anfield, and in my post was the Brit Awards CD for that year, still in a shrink wrap. I unwrapped it, bunged it on, and let it play while I got my cup of tea and my sandwich and whatever. The first track was Will Young, Better Leave Right Now. And then on, I think it was Piccadilly Radio in Manchester, they were having a bit of a talk session, and somebody said, "Oh, listen to that at Anfield. Even George, he's got on the anthem. We want you, Houllier out. He's playing Better Leave Right Now." There was nothing of the kind. I didn't even know what was going on. I got so much earache about that. I think they accepted my explanation in the end. And then the opposite way around, there was one match Wayne Rooney played not long after he got to United. He elbowed somebody in the face. He should have got sent off, but didn't. On the following week, I played elbow at half time, and about half a dozen people out of the 45,000 twigged. But fortunately, nobody upstairs twigged to that one.
Well, I remember one of your choices. It was Barcelona 2019. Obviously, the
yes.
famous game. It was Imagine, John Lennon. I was near the back of the cop. It always takes a while to get out. And then when we were playing that, then I stopped as I was walking down and tried to take the moment in a bit. Obviously, was that your choice then, I'm guessing?
That was a bit of inspiration because you remember at the end of that game, that was when the squad all lined up in front of the cops sang "You Never Walk Alone." And then when that had finished, I'm waiting for everybody to go home and nobody's moving. So I'd finished all the music I had. I was playing off a memory stick then. We've moved on to Spotify now, but that time it was a memory stick. Everything had been used. And I thought, right, pick something else. So I picked up Imagine by John Lennon, put that on, thinking they'd all drift away, and nobody drifted anywhere. They were all singing along. And for days after that, I was getting messages from people telling me where they were when I played that. My favourite was Sydney Casino, 6 o'clock in the morning. Apparently, all these big, rugged sheep farmers, and they were all in floods of tears, singing along with this. That gives you a great sense of power. When there's people 12,000 miles away, and you've done that to them. Yeah. It's weird, but again, it's like I was saying before, imposter syndrome. You're thinking, how did I do that?
Yeah, it was perfect. Well, I just want to finish this section, and obviously we touch on dark days, touch on your best days. I don't mean this in any offensive way, but how much longer do you think you are going to be doing the dream job, which you have labelled as?
Who knows? I sometimes think hard enough of this because there's so much hassle from various corners of the club nowadays. But then I think my kids are very proud of the fact that their dad is part of the setup. And then last week, as I say, I got me Jurgen hug and pictures and whatever. I can't lose that. It's conceivable I lose my marbles completely, or my favourite forecast. I think I'll probably have a coronary when Liverpool score in the 98th minute again. That's more likely what's going to finish me off. But I think I'd like to die in harness, put it that way. But again, I'm 78, so if I think I can get away with it, I'll carry on for a while yet. But if somebody, it'd be very nice if somebody came to me and said, "Listen, George, you had a good run," instead of just trying to, drive me batty in the sly way, which is what one or two people have been trying to do recently.
Yeah.
But I know sometimes you think this is, I can't say goodbye to all this. I mean, one of the German journalists I spoke to about Jurgen before he went, I met him out in the Philharmonic pub in Liverpool. It was a nice day. So I waited for him, sat at a table outside, and a number of people who stopped. He came over and said, "Excuse me, you're George," and I thought, this is great. It makes you feel so good. You're being shouted at somewhere else, and then that happens. It does boost your ego no end. And I do need my ego boosting sometimes. I would like to get the second book finished. That'll be good.
Yeah, well, as Kenny said, you're as big of a part of the club as he is.
Yeah,
So
I'm part of the furniture. Somebody said you're part of the match day experience, and somebody else said you're part of the furniture. I say the commode. That's my place.
I think many Liverpool fans would take being the commode of Anfield. So if that's what you are, then you can have that. All right, so we'll go to another break and want to talk about some more football when we come back. So see you in a sec. Welcome back to the next section of the Football Historian podcast.
Sorry, Pete. I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Where'd you get that shirt from?
Oh, this Latium number's just from Classic Football Shirts. Where'd you get yours from?
Thank you. Mine's from Classic Football Shirts as well.
Wow. Well, when I bought my shirt, I used the code TFH10 to get 10% off all orders. Did you use the same?
I did. I used a discount code. I think it was the same as yours.
Oh, TFH10. Oh, that's great, because if you want to get 10% off all your orders, you can use TFH10 at classicfootballshirts.com.
Unbelievable deal.
Welcome back, Section 3, Football Historian Podcast, joined by the voice of Anfield. And we're going to talk about your football history. So the first thing, before you got into this job that you're in, what was your first memory or game experience of football that you remember?
Well, my first memory of actually going was United in the Cup in January 1960. For some reason I'd never ever found out, my dad never took me to the football. He was an old-fashioned sort of person. His job was to go out, work, get the money to feed us. My mum, I was an only child, so my mum stayed at home and was a housewife. I went to school and did my homework. That was it. But we came to a stage, a few of us in school wanted to, go, and we all went and queued up to get tickets for this FA Cup tie against United. It was not a good start to my career because we got walloped 3-1 by a team. But Bobby Charlton was playing in that era. Before, I know my dad used to go every week, and he's, he'd come home. It was in the days when people used to wander the streets selling the Football Echo. So he'd come home with the Football Echo under his arm, and he'd tell us what happened. It's insane when you think about it now, because an hour or two after the game, you're waiting for somebody to come home from the match and tell you what happened. Nowadays, everybody knows what happens all the time, but it just you forget the way things were.
Yeah, but you probably know less going the match now than what everyone else does, don't you? But so what do you think? Maybe if I ask one before your job and one after, but what's the best game that you've witnessed before becoming stadium manager?
Actually, beforehand, that's easy. 1967, we played TSV Munich in the Cup Winners' Cup. We beat them 8-0, and people just assumed they were rubbish, but they weren't. They beat us in the return leg. It was one of those games that every shot went in. We had, on bar one, I think it was Tommy Smith who brought a save out to the keeper, but there were 8 blinding goals, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I mean, I'm never been a big fan of these 1-0 in the last minute jobs. I'd much rather watch some open, expansive football and win 8-0 than sweat until the very end.
Yeah. And then since you took over, what's the best one? I'll say at Anfield that you've been working.
Yeah, it's got to be Barcelona. I mean, if you'd written a script for that for a boys' comic, people would say it was just too far-fetched to be true. And yourself, we turned up with 3-0 down to the best team in the world. 2 of our star players are cropped. We've got no chance. And I think people just turned up. Obviously, everybody's got the tickets before the first leg, so they're going anyway. But I think a lot of people turned up thinking, well, I saw, Messi play, and I saw Suarez play, and all the rest of it. I can tell the grandkids. Then, of course, we scored reasonably early on, and then it's only 3-1, and you think, maybe. And just after half-time, Gini Wijnaldum bangs in 2, and all of a sudden, Well, and then the greatest ever corner kick ever, anywhere, and we're 4-0 up, and then to be honest, to this day, I really don't know how long it was from the fourth goal until the final whistle. It seemed like about 5 hours, and you knew very well that all that Barcelona had to do was get one dodgy goal, and they were through, but they didn't, and we're through, and because we had to win it after that.
Yeah, but again, just you sitting in your little naughty corner, as you called it. What like when the fans are singing and stuff like that? Do you join in, or what? What do you do?
No, I don't. I'd get wheeled away, and the men in white coats who I started.
Or then, so when Origi scores that goal, how do you compose yourself to say goal scorer is?
You don't. I mean, I probably would have leapt up in the air and then leapt down again and just gone, calm down, because especially nowadays, you get time to compose yourself because you've got to wait for VAR, and you wait, and sometimes you think, has their mic gone off? Because it's so long, and you're thinking there's surely, they can't be thinking that long. And that particular fourth goal, I was convinced the referee was going to blow us. Say, take it again, because we were too quick. I was quite relaxed. And that's annoying. We've got the ball in there. It's not going to count. And then it slowly dawns on me that they're all going back to the halfway line. And it is going to count. And off we go.
Well, I always say that Wijnaldum's second goal was the best moment of that
game.
Yes. Because you had no idea. As you said, that fourth one, it was like, what's going on? But that third one, we were back in it, at least that was the moment. So this is another interesting one, I think, for you, because you've seen so many eras, and again, not in a rude way, but what do you think is the greatest era of football? So it doesn't have to be Liverpool, obviously, you've seen Shankly.
Well, I mean, I think the team we had in the mid-80s was probably the best ever, because I think it must have been 84, 85. We turned up for the first game, and just after we'd won in Rome, and the atmosphere was flat. And I was thinking about it, and I said to somebody, it dawned on me, I think the problem is we've won so much. People are expecting us to win. There's no sort of excitement anymore in, are we going to win this, are we going to win that? And it's not as if there's nothing to cheer for, but there wasn't that edge, to watching Liverpool. Although obviously that season we ended up at Heysel, and there was more than an edge. But at that time we didn't know it. But I say that team, that played in Rome in May '84, it was just amazing. You look back at them now, and they were a proper team, and I was going to use the word arrogant, but they weren't. They knew they were the best in the business, and you wouldn't know anybody ever beat them.
Yeah, that's a specialty era. This was lead into the next question, which I think you're well placed to answer. The best 5 Liverpool players of all time. And if I can push you to put them in order as well, please.
Oh, blimey. Well, you've got to start with Kenny.
Your mate.
Yeah. People ask me who's the best player you've seen at Anfield. I say Kenny. And they say, no, not just Liverpool players. All the people who come, I say Kenny. Still stick with Kenny. Obviously, Steven Gerrard. I just wish we had him now. Where'd you go after that? I used to like watching Michael Robinson play, strangely. And I think about Michael Robinson, I loved his attitude. He was a good player. He was never going to be one of the greats. But you know the story. He was playing for Brighton, and he heard Liverpool were interested, and he packed a bag and flew over to Holland, where we were doing our pre-season, found Joe Fagan as a word of a sign. Because he was so keen to come and play. There's not much of that lately. Rushy, of course. I wish we had him banging goals in now. Where Mo sometimes has an off day, I don't think Rushy ever did. And Robbie Fowler. Again, they are mostly forwards, goal scorers. But Robbie, he was the most gifted natural goal scorer. I don't know whether his centre of gravity or what on earth it was, but he used to love watching him play. And again, his attitude was spot on. I know people sometimes say, name your best 11. I say that's impossible because, there's Virgil van Dijk. If you're asking me for 6, I'll probably put him in there.
Yeah.
He's the classiest centre-back I've ever seen. But you go on to Alan Hansen, who was a fantastic player, but you can't have him without Loro. And then you can't leave Tomo out or Emlyn Hughes. Tomo and Emlyn Hughes were a pair. You can't have Kenny without Ian Rush. And I haven't even mentioned John Barnes yet. He's most people's favourite who watched in that era. And you go on. I know last time I tried to name the first 11, I think I got down to about 36 in the end. People debate Ray Clements and Alison Becker. I'd go for Clem. I've said to you recently when we were talking about Tommy Lawrence, and the big problem with the history of Tommy Lawrence was that he was replaced by the greatest keeper ever. And you can go on. If you've got 2 hours, I can go right through the whole lot. I go and get me Wikipedia off on my phone. And
so your top 5 then, what are we doing? Kenny?
Kenny, Stephen Jarrett. I suppose we'd put Robbie Fowler and Ian Rush in, and Virgil probably in the 5. That'd be wrong to leave him out because he's pure class.
It's not about 5.
No.
And then I'm going to give you another tough one. Is the best 5 non-Liverpool players. I know you've just said Kenny's the best anyway, but
yeah, when he played
he
for
still
Celtic,
counts.
yeah.
He still counts as Liverpool players. The top 5 non-Liverpool players you've seen.
I'm lucky enough to have seen Cruyff play a couple of times in the flesh. Lionel Messi, of course. I'm not sure I like the fellow as a fellow, but I've never had any chance to talk to him or whatever. Now we're going. I mean, again, it's an age thing. I'm old enough to have seen Jimmy Greaves play. I'm now thinking I shouldn't have left Ian St John out of my top 5. I'll be worried about that for about 3 days now. But Greavesy was an amazing talent in his day, and again, obviously we're going back to the 60s now. So I saw him a couple of times, only sort of 3 times in the flesh. But then, scratching my head to think of more off the top of my head.
Players who have been clapped off. I think we had Rob Thomas on as our last guest, and we were talking about when Ronaldo was clapped off at Anfield when he was at Real Madrid. Doesn't have to be him, but like players who get a round of applause when they come off the pitch doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen very often. But I mean, I never made my mind up about Ronaldo. I'm not sure he was the greatest player ever. I know for a fact he thinks he was the greatest player ever. Or if you asked him, he'd say he knows he's the greatest player ever. But again, you watch the likes of him, and I used to like Eric Cantona. Strange to relate, because I think I said, I remember writing years and years ago about him. I was, he's a funny fellow, as you know, but he was a terrific player, and he knew where the net was, and he could put himself about a bit. I think, obviously, all that business about him lamping a fan at Crystal Palace that night put people off, and then some of the weird sayings he came out with. But I remember the story about when the Justice Collective were touring Europe, and he got up on stage and sang with them. And that takes some doing. A lot of bottles. So again, you'd shove him in there. And I saw George Best a couple of times, not very often, but I did actually see the guy. I saw Stanley Matthews play once, but when he was 49, 50, and he got marked out of the game. It was the Goodison Park of all places, but I just wanted to say I'd seen him, and there you go.
Yeah. So what was our five then? Who do we have? Cruyff, Messi, Greaves.
And
say Best and
George Best,
and
of course.
Cantona.
Yeah, Cantona.
Not bad again.
No.
Right, okay, we're going to go to a final break before you're going to help me settle some of the biggest debates in football history.
Okay.
So we'll see you in a second. Are you looking for a Kazakhstani football team to support? Then I think FC Kemay is the team you should support. Do you agree?
Growing up as a child, I always had FC Kemay posters on my bedroom wall.
Well, and all the children of the Kazakhstani future will have FC Kemay posters on their wall because FC Kemay is the team to support, and because of that, Tom has made us a chant that we're all going to follow. So,
up the Kemay, up the Kemay,
up the Kemay. Make sure you follow them on all the social medias. All the posts and all the things you should follow will appear below us right here. You should be a supporter of FC Kemay.
Live, laugh, Kemay.
The debate.
Welcome to the debate. We're going to settle some of the biggest debates in football history, and I'm going to hit you first, George, with one I think I know the answer to, which is Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, or Paul Scholes.
Oh, that's a no-brainer.
Who's second and third?
Scholes and Lampard, second and third. They're not fit to lace Steven Gerrard's boots, either of them.
Yeah, well, I think it's. Was it Rudy said recently as well? He'd picked Gerrard over him and stuff like that. It's quite a landslide, but I am asking a lot of Liverpool related people, so I'm interested to hear the other side of it. But I agree. I think it is quite easy. Next one: Pele or Maradona?
Oh, Pele, easy again. Pele, I did actually see play in the World Cup in 1966. The day the Portuguese crocked him, so he couldn't play anymore. I remember him coming. He came back home with a splint on one leg. There were no subs, and he was still better than most of them on the pitch.
I think he announced his retirement for international football after that tournament because he got kicked so much. But even then, still making an impact. Another one again. I think I know what you'll say: Messi or Ronaldo.
Oh, Messi. I wouldn't give Ronaldo house room. It was up to me. He never played football.
Okay, fair enough. If they are the best two players, I'm going to change it slightly from what I've said before, because I've been saying the last 10, 15. I would say of the last 30 years, they're the best two players. Who do you reckon is third?
You'd probably get, 30 years, so going back to 1994.
Yeah.
So Kenny had packed up by then, didn't he? So, that's a really, really good question. I'll have to have a long think about that.
We've had mentions of like Brazilian Ronaldo. We've had Suarez. We've had Gerrard. We've had
Suarez,
Ronaldinho.
I enjoyed watching Suarez play. He was in the same league as Robbie Fowler. He was a natural goal scorer, and it was only his antics away from playing football that spoiled everything. Can you imagine if we'd had him and Torres for a long time? Nobody would ever have beaten us.
Yeah, it's very special players. Would you put in behind them too as the best?
Yeah.
For each generation. Okay, great. And then I want to ask you, goalkeepers, Buffon, Casillas, and Neuer. We can have a 1, 2, 3.
I've always been a big fan of Gigi Buffon. Always was. I used to enjoy watching him. He was, again, naturally talented. I really used to enjoy just when he was playing. It didn't matter what was going on. Obviously, unless he was playing against us, but he seemed to have some unnatural abilities. I think that's he could get the balls, but nobody else could get anywhere near, and it looked like he didn't break sweat while he was doing it either.
Yeah. And who would be second and third then between Casillas and Neuer?
Oh, Neuer and then Casillas, I think.
Yeah. Okay, and then the final question we ask is, who is the greatest team ever? So it doesn't have to be like for one game. It can be like a 2-year period. It can be a tournament team. be whatever, but who do you think is the finest team to play the game?
I'm old enough again to have seen the Tottenham team that won the double when nobody else won the double. I got very irate last week when my newspaper had a headline, "The greatest," when they were talking about Manchester City. They're not. They really aren't. I mean, again, I saw the Busby Babes, but looking back, I mean, Bob Paisley's Liverpool has got to be up there with him. I discount all the Italian teams mainly because of what was going on behind the scenes. You can never know whether they were winning because they were scoring more goals than anybody else, or whether they had bigger brown envelopes than anybody else. And then the French team that won the 98 World Cup, I used to enjoy watching, but again, as a club side, those are the guys.
So are we giving it to Tottenham? Are we going to give it to Tottenham then, yeah?
Yes, probably, because I know they were, when they were at their peak, they were almost invincible.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to throw in one last question, I'm sorry. The best manager ever as well, please.
Oh, there's been so many. I mean, it's got to be Bill Shankly, although I've got into trouble lately for saying that Jurgen Klopp can stand, shoulder to shoulder with the fellow, but I know I got shouted at for missing Kenny out. And I said Kenny wasn't just a manager, he was a player, a human being, what he did in Hillsborough, and now he's an ambassador. So Kenny is in a Kenny league, whereas the other two are in the league of football managers. I mean, what I would say, if it wasn't for Bill Shankly, we wouldn't have come all this way through to Jurgen Klopp. Yeah. But again, different personalities, and you look back, and of course it was Bob Paisley who won all the silverware, but he was known as the quiet man for very good reason. Jurgen is a force of nature. I said I was on Sky News a couple of weeks ago talking about Jurgen, and I said that when he came, that day we were talking about on Channel 4, I called him a breath of fresh air, and I realised later that's nonsense. He's an absolute tornado, no matter. Breath of fresh air. He is a force of nature.
Yeah, that's it. Again, like Kenny complimented you, you can't get much more than being compared to Shankly, can you? So it's a good comparison. Right, well, that concludes our conversation, so thank you very much. People at home, how can they reach you, get your book, plug yourself?
Oh, yes. My book is still on Amazon. It's called The Voice of Anfield, believe it or not. Book 2 might be out in 2 or 3 years, or 3 or 4 years, depending when they shuffle me off to the old folks' home. But I'm the easiest person to find in Western Europe. You just look on Facebook or Twitter. Sorry, X. Not allowed to call it Twitter anymore. And you'll find me in there. Just Google my name and remember to spell it right. It's Sephton. People get that wrong. I'll get really, really ratty.
We'll put it on the screen as well, don't worry.
Oh, yeah,
we can read it as well as listening to it, you'll be fine. Well, thank you so much. I just want to say as well, you touched on it before, the Tommy Lawrence book. You were the only person who came to everything book sign, and you were beyond helpful, more than I could ever expected of anyone. So I really appreciate your time.
That was Daddy. I enjoyed every minute.
Yeah, but no, it was beyond kind, as I said. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for coming here to the garage. Thank you everyone for watching at home, and we will see you on the next episode of the Football Historian Podcast.